This happened a few years ago, and I still can't sleep right if I hear footsteps on gravel. I thought it was going to be a perfect fall weekend. 6 of us, cheap tents, too much trail mix, just noise and laughter under the trees. I had no idea I'd end that night with shaking hands, a bloody knife, and a stranger on the ground screaming. We left late, the way groups always do. Someone forgot fuel, someone else forgot their jacket. So by the time we hit the forest road, the sun was giving up. My friend Mark swore he remembered a short way to the site. It wasn't a road so much as 2 ruts in the dirt that climbed into pines and dead leaves. We followed anyway, windows cracked, everyone talking over the radio like this was some dumb adventure we'd laugh about later. The shortcut dumped us into a clearing that didn't look like a campsite at all. It looked old. Uneven ground, stone markers tilted sideways, iron fencing swallowed by vines. A cemetery. The kind that doesn't make it onto maps anymore. We all got quiet in the same instant. No joke, like a switch flipped. The air felt colder there. "Let's just go around," someone said. But the ruts curved past the stones and stupidly we took them. I remember thinking, if we see anyone out here, turn around. We did see someone. We didn't turn around. A man appeared in the tree line to our right, not close, just watching. Bulky build, jacket hanging heavy, face I couldn't make out because of the light. He didn't wave, didn't call out, just stood there as our tires crunched past the rusted fence. By the time we reached the official campground lot, we laughed it off. Local groundskeeper, hunter, whatever. We set up 2 tents, 1 cheap pop-up canopy that kept sagging, a fire that took forever to catch because the wood was damp. Normal camping frustrations felt comforting. We cooked, told the same dumb stories, watched the fire collapse into coals. Then the footsteps started. Not branches in the wind, not animal light. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Gravel shifting just beyond the circle of firelight. I froze with a marshmallow halfway to my mouth. Mark's eyes cut to mine. We all heard it. No one wanted to be the one to acknowledge it first. "Probably another site," I said. Except all the nearby pads were empty. We'd checked. The season was mostly over, and the ranger station had been closed when we rolled in. We killed the lantern to let our eyes adjust. The world went black except for the ember red of the fire. That's when I saw the silhouette. He was standing where the trees started, far enough that my brain could pretend it was nothing, close enough that my body knew better. Same build as the man by the cemetery. No pack, no gear, just there. His head seemed angled toward us like he was counting. "Can we help you?" Mark called out. No answer. The figure stepped back and melted into shadow like he'd never been there. We didn't pass around beers after that. We put the fire down to half, kept voices low. Every few minutes, crunch, crunch, on gravel or leaves, moving, stopping, circling. Our dogs weren't with us, thank God, or maybe not. So it was just the 6 of us and our racing thoughts. We made a plan without saying it. Buddy system to the bathroom, knives on belts, keys in pockets. Sometime after midnight, the wind picked up and the canopy thumped like a heartbeat. Chloe whispered, "He's closer." I followed her stare. Between 2 pines, shoulders squared, the man. This time I saw the shine of metal low by his leg, a long blade. My mouth went dry. "We're leaving," I said. We moved like a pit crew, stuffing sleeping bags in any direction, collapsing tent poles without caring how they bent. The footsteps sped up as we worked. Leaves brushed. A boot scuffed rock. We could feel him testing the boundary of light, like he was learning how bold we were willing to let him be. When I yanked my tent stakes, I realized I couldn't hear him anymore. Silence is worse than noise in the woods. I looked up and didn't see him. I saw nothing. That's when I knew he was planning to close the distance. "Keys," I whispered to Mark. "Now." We carried everything we could and left the rest, sprinting the last 10 yards to the cars. My hands shook so hard I missed the door handle twice. Headlights exploded across the trees when the engine caught. In that same burst of light, the man appeared at the edge of the lot, not startled, angry. He stepped forward into the beam, and I finally saw him. Tall, heavy shoulders, face twisted in pure hatred. In his hand, not a knife, a machete. He raised it shoulder high and started toward Mark, who had stopped dumbly in the open like a deer. I don't remember deciding. I remember moving. I grabbed the small fixed blade I'd packed like a joke accessory and ran at an angle, the way a coach once taught me to tackle. The man turned fast, faster than I expected, and I felt the air move as the machete cut down. I went low, drove the knife into the back of his knee where the joint gives. Everything turned into noise. The crack of him hitting gravel, his howl, my friends yelling my name, the machete clattering near my sneaker. He grabbed for me and I jumped back, slipped, scrambled, blood and dirt mixing under my palms. Mark lunged, kicked the machete away. "Get in the car!" someone screamed. We did. I slammed the door and locked it 3 times like a ritual. The man tried to stand and couldn't, one leg gone useless, hands clawing at the ground. He looked at us through the windshield with a hatred I hope never to see again. For a second I thought he'd crawl. Instead he grabbed his leg and rocked, teeth bared, sound half scream, half growl. Mark's engine stalled once, twice, then caught. The man reached for something under his jacket and I didn't wait to see what. I threw the car into reverse and fishtailed dirt in his direction, not to hit him, just to make space. And then we were flying down the access road with tents and gear still scattered behind us. We didn't stop at the campground office. We didn't stop at the cemetery. We drove until the trees thinned and the radio came back to life. At the first gas station we found, we spilled out under fluorescent lights and dialed with shaking thumbs. The sheriff on the other end asked too many questions, exact location, description, did we need EMS? And I kept saying, he had a machete. He followed us for hours. Please send someone. They said they'd check the site. Maybe they did. We never went back to find out. We filed a report and gave statements and woke up the next morning with that elastic feeling in the body that says you were almost a statistic. People love to ask why we didn't handle it better, why we didn't confront him sooner, why we took the road by the cemetery, why we camp at all. I don't know. I know that sometimes the woods aren't the scary part. Sometimes it's the person who decides you're their entertainment for the night. We still have the scarred tent stakes and the dented mess kit that rattles like a guilt bell when I open the camping bin. I haven't thrown any of it away. Maybe I keep it to remind myself that fear is there for a reason. Maybe I keep it because part of me needs proof that it happened. Either way, to the man with the machete who stalked us from the cemetery to our site, counted our breaths in the dark, and bled onto the gravel when the world finally pushed back. Let's not meet again. Ever. This happened 2 summers ago, and I still see that man every time I close my eyes. We were camping deep in a state forest, far from the main road, just a small group of friends who wanted a quiet weekend off the grid. The kind of trip where the loudest thing is the firewood popping. It was supposed to be peaceful, it wasn't. The first night was normal. We pitched tents, made a small fire, passed around cheap beer, and watched the stars. There's a silence out there that doesn't exist anywhere else. Thick, heavy, like it presses against your eardrums. I remember thinking how strange it felt that no other campers were around. No distant laughter, no headlights through the trees. Just us, the fire, and the black woods beyond. Sometime after midnight, the woods started talking again. Not animals. These were heavier sounds. Footsteps, snapping branches maybe 100 feet away. We froze, waiting for them to stop. They didn't. They got faster. Then came a sound I'll never forget. A man screaming. It wasn't the kind of scream you use when you're startled. It was raw, guttural, full of pain and panic, echoing through the trees. Then we saw movement. Something crashing through the darkness, breaking branches, running toward us. We stood up at the same time, flashlights flicking on, hearts pounding so loud it felt like the ground was vibrating. The beam caught him at the last second. A man burst out of the tree line, covered in blood. He was barefoot, shirt torn, face pale and twisted with terror. He stumbled into the edge of our firelight, gasping, clutching his side. Before anyone could speak, another sound tore through the woods. The pounding of footsteps behind him. Heavy, faster, closer. He tried to form words, but all that came out was a choking sound. Then he looked over his shoulder and his whole body tensed like prey that's already accepted it's over. We didn't move. We didn't even breathe. He collapsed near the fire, eyes wild, blood slick on his arms and neck. For a moment I thought it was his own blood. Then I realized it wasn't. It was smeared, not dripping, like he'd tried to help someone else, or like he'd been close to something violent. The footsteps stopped right at the tree line. We swung our lights that way, but there was nothing, just the sway of branches and the echo of our own panic. He was shaking uncontrollably, muttering words that didn't make sense. I caught pieces. He's still out there. Won't stop. Don't let him in. We didn't ask questions. One of my friends ran for the car keys while I grabbed the small hatchet we kept by the fire. The forest went completely still again, like it was holding its breath with us. The man tried to stand but fell to his knees, pointing toward the darkness. He wasn't looking at us anymore. He was looking past us, behind us. The sound that came next was subtle, a stick breaking, slow footsteps just outside the circle of firelight. We turned as one, flashlight sweeping, but again, nothing. The bloodied man made a low, animal sound and tried to crawl under the picnic table like a child hiding from thunder. We could smell him now, iron and sweat and dirt. He grabbed my leg and whispered, "Don't move." Then someone breathed. You can tell the difference between wind and lungs. This was lungs. We backed toward the cars, dragging him with us. He fought to stay low, but he was too weak. When we reached the gravel, I looked back once. A shape shifted between the trees, broad and slow, moving like it wasn't in any hurry, like it knew we'd already lost. We piled into the cars and locked the doors. The headlights cut through the trees, and for half a second, I saw it. A man, or something man-shaped, just standing there, watching. The bloodied stranger whimpered and ducked under the dash. I'll never forget the way he said, "Don't look at him." We tore out of there, gravel spraying. I don't remember the turns or the signs, just the sound of my breathing and the tires grinding the road. We drove until we saw a ranger station and lights. When we stopped, the bloodied man was shaking so hard the seatbelt rattled. The ranger called an ambulance and police. We told them what happened, what we saw. They told us to stay put. I heard one of the officers say over the radio, "We found a trail of blood by Site 14. Doesn't look fresh." They took the injured man away. We never found out who he was. The police said there were signs of a struggle about half a mile from our camp, blood on the leaves, a torn jacket, a broken flashlight, but no other person was found. We packed up the next morning without speaking. The fire pit was cold, the woods quiet again, but every shadow looked like it could start moving. Later that week, I checked local news. There was nothing. No missing person, no arrest, no body. It was like it never happened. People always say the woods are peaceful. I used to think so too. Now I know better. Sometimes the forest keeps its own secrets. And sometimes, if you're unlucky, it lets you see one.